It's Wednesday, July 16th. My name is Gerald Clark. Welcome to all of you to another day in the glorious simulator. Today I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to play interviewer and interview someone else. And this time I'm going to interview Christa Clark, my Alma Gamella soulmate. And she's had a very interesting story to tell relative to mind-body experiences and where nutrition fits into our complete state of health. And so I'm going to take some time tonight and interview her and try to expose what's going on in her domain. Join me in welcoming Christa Clark.
Well, hi, Gerald. Thank you so much for having me on and taking the time to talk to me. I'm so excited to share some of my story about how I became vegan and some of the benefits of a vegan lifestyle. So thank you again for having me on, and I look forward to disclosing some of this information.
Well, for all of those of you that know me and my book, The Anunnaki Nibiru, you know I've mentioned Christa several times with her website, Artistic Vegan. And several of you have followed her blog and purchased her cookbook, The Artistic Vegan Meatless Mainstays for Modern Man. It's available on Amazon. But the reason I wanted to pin her down was not just because she's readily available and my wife, but because I've watched her path, and what she's been able to achieve is, I don't know, I would say approaching the archetype of how humans should be. And I think it's very interesting. A lot of people notice that about her. So I figured it'd be a good time to ask her some questions that might lead to a little more disclosure. So Christa, were you always vegan? And if not, tell me about what happened in your life that led you to become a vegan.
Thanks, Gerald. Well, I certainly was not always vegan. I was originally raised on a farm to begin the first 7 years of my life, and from there I pretty much consumed the standard American diet, and I loved processed food and eating out and bacon and everything bad. And luckily my mom was into Weight Watchers, and so her concern with her weight kind of helped me maintain a healthy weight growing up. Once I got out on my own, I didn't really know how to cook, and I ate a lot of processed food, and I ate a lot of fast food, and just kind of ate whatever I liked. And as I grew older, then came the weight gain, and I wasn't as fond of that. So I went to a raw food seminar when I was in San Diego at the World Beat Center, and I attended this seminar that just changed my life. It was suggested to try a vegan meal once a week and go from there, to follow your heart. So from that time forward, I tried a vegetarian meal just once a week. I went to Trader Joe's or a local health food store and picked up a few items and found that I kind of liked this food. And so then I started going Monday through Friday, and pretty soon it turned into a full-time thing, as I noticed on the weekends I would have almost a food hangover from overeating on, cheese and everything that I thought I was missing out on. I also had a best friend that was vegetarian at the time, and that also led as an inspiration to further try this lifestyle. I pursued that, and with yoga I managed to get off about 60 pounds, believe it or not, and felt great. After that, I met Gerald, who was my neighbor. We'd been neighbors for about a year. He was 2 doors down from me, and we had talked a few different times, and I had noticed him doing yoga and stretching different things on his porch, and I noticed he wasn't working quite as hard as I was, hoofing it up and down the hills and doing Jillian Michaels and behind closed doors and everything else under the sun. And I wanted to know what his secret was, and he said it was structural integration. He said, your body's like plastic and it can actually change and be molded. And I didn't quite believe him at the time. Seeing is believing, and we offered to do a trade where he would get my vegetarian cooking and I would get structural integration. And I wanted it to be a good trade, so I tried very hard to make really delicious gourmet meals, and this really helped me in the kitchen a lot and honed in on my skills. About a year later, so after we got married and we're traveling around, he suggested I start photographing my food. So I started taking pictures and trying to make the food look, more presentable to the eye. And about a year later or so, I decided to start a blog and About a year after that, I published my first cookbook, and that actually led him to see that you can self-publish a book, and he was inspired, and about 4 months later published his book. So it was a really exciting journey.
All right, thanks, Christa. Hey, I wanted to say, as far as that trade went, where I traded structural integration for vegan world fusion cuisine, as far as I'm concerned, I think we both hugely benefited. My diet was not stellar, even though I didn't have a lot of body fat and I was in pretty good shape, but I had eaten a lot better in my life, and I have to admit, I was making like a pot of spaghetti, and so I'd have something all week, and that's the kind of stuff I was doing. So, I wasn't really handy much in the kitchen, even though I wanted to eat much better than I was. I wanted to clarify for those who don't know what a vegan diet is. Basically, it's a diet devoid of all animal products. So no cheese, no eggs, no meat, nothing like that. Some people would view that as extreme, but at the same time, I think with a video segment you're going to show later or have on your Facebook page, I think something even more extreme is having your chest cut open and having your heart valves replaced because of your diet. I think that's even more extreme. While the Western diet is pretty tantalizing, and I have to admit, I was eating meat and burgers and stuff until just probably a year before I met you. But even though I was vegetarian, sometimes I would eat fish and things. So, and I was still eating cheese. As you remember, we'd polish off a block of cheese in a weekend and then wonder why we felt so bad. Anyway, even though food is easy to get, it's tantalizingly advertised and readily available in our society. Talk a little bit about some of the devastating effects that the Western diet can cause, and give a couple of specific examples if you don't mind.
Thanks, Gerald. The Western diet surely can be very alluring, but also begs to offer a wake-up call. On a special occasion in America, it typically calls for a feast. Barbecues and cakes and Coke and beer and so forth. And statistics show that 40% of Americans are obese. A half of those are taking prescription drugs. Many are on Lipitor. $2.2 trillion per year is spent on healthcare in the U.S., more dollars per person than in any other industrialized country in the world. 500,000 people annually undergo heart surgery, and with each of those individuals, they pay over $100,000 in the USA for heart surgery. 1,500 people die per day from cancer. Prostate cancer is the most common disease among men in the U.S., and those are just some of the startling statistics. On top of that, diabetes is skyrocketing, especially in our youth, leading to potentially shorter lives, and makes one ponder what that leaves for our future generations.
So I'm hearing that the diet is the basis for these debilitating effects, including diabetes and heart disease. So what's leading to this? What's the average person consume for a man and a woman? Do you have any statistics on that?
I do. According to the FDA, the average man is 5 foot 9 inches and weighs 190 pounds, and the average woman is 5 foot 4 inches and weighs 164 pounds. The average amount of food eaten is about 1,996 pounds of food per year. That's almost 1 ton a year, states the FDA. As of 2007, 222 pounds of meat was consumed per person per year, with 107 pounds of sugar, 605 pounds of dairy, 141 pounds of caloric sweeteners, 42 pounds of corn syrup, 56 pounds of corn, 24 pounds of coffee, cocoa, and nuts, 273 pounds of fruit, and 415 pounds of vegetables. With unhealthy food coming in at 29 pounds of French fries per year, 23 pounds of pizza, 24 pounds of ice cream, 53 gallons of soda, 24 pounds of artificial sweeteners, and 2.7 pounds of sodium, which is 47% higher than is recommended by the FDA. which is probably a high recommendation as it is. So it's pretty wild once you start seeing how many pounds of food that we're eating with just meat and sugar and dairy, and we're wondering why these health problems are coming into our lives. So many of these foods can lead to a high rise of obesity. High fructose corn syrup, processed sugars, and unnaturally dense food are the main cause of obesity. Whereas 500 calories of plant-based food triggers a natural stretch and density receptors in our stomach, which causes us to feel full. That same 500 calories of rich processed food don't cause the same filling sensation, causing us to want to eat more and more and more, and thus we overeat continuously. Unfortunately, it leads to high obesity. As natural, rich foods naturally excite us. They offer the highest amount of dietary reward, but unfortunately, they're full of concentrated processed sugar, fat, and salt, thus creating a low-grade addiction, which is no different than an addiction to drugs. It leaves us with a calorie-rich and nutrient-poor diet if we stay on the standard American diet versus looking for an alternative solution.
Wow, those are some pretty eye-opening statistics on what we're consuming. And for you and I that both believe food is medicine, it's shocking. Hopefully it is to other people. Speaking of shocking, some of the ways that we've been influenced through marketing and such relative to our food intake is quite disturbing. For instance, I remember distinctly the got milk ads and the FDA's food pyramid that turns out to be completely wrong, and how significantly Wendy's was pushing where's the beef. And so basically what you're telling me is that none of what's being supported, milk and dairy, is good for you. And I want you to explain to people why it's not.
That's so true. For decades, government and food industry have been pushing dairy. Got milk? Stating women get osteoporosis if you don't get enough calcium. Well, the truth is, nations with a high level of calcium in their diet also have high levels of hip fractures and osteoporosis. I wish I would have known that years ago when I was guzzling jugs and gallons of milk. Low-fat and fat-free dairy products are also pushed really hard. And when it comes to find out, those are actually higher in protein and are directly related to prostate cancer, the same way smoking cigarettes is to lung cancer. And when you think about it, why are we mixing milk from one species to another to begin with? It doesn't happen in nature. So why do we suck the milk from the cow's teat? Casein, which is an animal protein found in dairy products, when consumed, actually turns on cancer. A rat study was done where rats that consumed 20% casein had early cancer tumor growth, but when they reduced the level consumed to 5%, the cancer growth stopped. And they were literally able to turn it on and off by adjusting the level of protein. Of course, behind the push for dairy and meat is corporate dollars and chairs of committees telling us what to eat and what not to eat, not caring for the health and well-being of the people, not caring about the 20% of the Amazon rainforest being destroyed, the billions of cattle slaughtered each year, not concerned with leaving a lighter footprint on the planet. We're harming our bodies and over 10 billion innocent animals per year in the U.S. alone. Animal-based foods cause deadly diseases. I and many others recommend a whole foods, plant-based diet with no animal, dairy, or processed foods.
For those who haven't seen the movie on YouTube, Forks Over Knives, I highly recommend it. And Christa and I were rewatching it the other night just to bone up for this interview. And in that, a couple of doctors, some elderly gentlemen that were Ivy League level academics, got together and they went to China to do a study on their eating habits. And I want you to tell me, Christa, a little bit about that study and why it was so profound.
In the China study, 6,500 people were chosen from certain counties and interviewed about their diet and lifestyle choices. And they went ahead and took blood and urine samples, gathered all this various information. Turns out there were over 94,000 correlations found between diet and disease. And when they were looking at the generations from other cultures abroad, they revealed how good a plant-based whole food diet is for you. When they looked at the first generation, when people ate primarily rice and vegetables, they were living longer, more vibrant lives into their elder years. When they looked at the second generation with animal and dairy introduced, the generation was fatter, sicker, and had more disease, less vibrant, and so it continues. Animal protein increases disease, and plant-based protein decreases disease. It's that simple. Food, when used as your medicine, your treatment, truly improves your health. Plant-based diet is beneficial to health and is always associated with lower mortality of stroke and a lower risk of developing disease. Plant-based diet can help reverse disease. As Thomas Edison once said, the doctor of the future will no longer treat the human frame with drugs, but rather will cure and prevent disease with nutrition.
When I first thought about not eating meat, it had nothing to do with how the animals are raised or what hormones are in them or any of that. I was reading a yoga book that said consuming red meat introduced not only the creatine that bodybuilders really like, but it also introduced uric acid. And uric acid is the basis for gout and other problems. And it also makes your joints kind of stiff. So that's why in yoga it's kind of good to try not eating it for a while just to see the effects. So I personally have, been a vegetarian for, I think it was up to 3 years prior to we even meeting. And then so I got to compare that with a pure vegan diet as well. It's stunning the effect diet has on your physical body, your energy body, your state of mind. Consider what hormones must be in an animal's bloodstream at the time it's executed for you to eat it. These are hormones generated by fear and anxiety, and we know those are really not healthy in our bloodstreams. It causes stress and such. So consuming it from another animal can't possibly be healthy. So while we're talking about the negative benefits of that diet, which thanks to you I was able to let completely go of, what are the benefits of a vegan diet, and why should anyone consider going one or attempting a plant-based whole food diet at all? I'm going to let you talk to that one.
Thanks. And I like you, I didn't start out for the animals or the rainforest or anything like that either. My weight had got out of control and I started to try it, and I just generally felt better and better. I used to get stomach aches all the time, and those slowly went away. My health and energy just got better, and I wanted more of that. It was a natural progression. There's so many benefits to adopting a plant-based whole foods diet. You can reverse and prevent disease. Studies show from Forks Over Knives and other studies have shown that it can eliminate heart disease, obesity, and one of the doctors was quoted, "The answer's so simple it's criminal. Eat more plant-based foods." So if everyone adopted a plant-based diet, we could really reduce healthcare costs by 70 to 80%, and it could be the greatest gift that we could provide our children and our grandchildren to help them find the power within to heal themselves and avoid tragic events in healthcare. Imagine a world with no more heart disease, diabetes, obesity, arthritis, depression, cancers. It would be amazing. Heart disease need never exist nor never progress. Let food be thy medicine. What if you knew that only 1 or 2% of cancers contributed to genes? It would remove the victim mentality and give you power. When we change our health, we change our destiny. Now you understand. Now you can apply and watch the results and be the change that the world wants to see.
Christa, I want to take the time to thank you for sharing some of the details about your path. And I'll reiterate, Christa's website is artisticvegan.com. From there are links to her Facebook, YouTube, and to her blog. I have to tell you also, as a recipient of that diet and all the pictures that you'll see in the book, it's been an amazing experience and transformation for me to eat properly and to see the effects of deriving your protein from plants and nuts and seeds, and not having to be enslaved to the idea that you need more protein from meat, because that's a lie. Anyway, I want to thank you for sharing. And be sure to visit Christa's website, www.artisticvegan.com. And for those Anunnaki fans out there, please be sure to visit my website, www.geraldclark77.com. Thanks again, and stay tuned for the next interview that she and I have put together or other media that we provide on our channels.